Attention. Our learning target, we're moving on with Unit 1, and somebody remind me at the end, I've got a learning target tracker I want you guys to fill out. But, Deshauna, will you read that learning target civics? Yep. You got it. Awesome. I can explain how a nation's political documents are influenced by philosophical theories. All right. What philosophical theories are we talking about? Okay, natural rights, which was what old white guy from England thought about that? Ooh, look back in our notes from Friday. All right. Life, liberty, and property. Who was it? John Locke. Thank you. Okay. Then we had another guy. This guy was French, who talked about all government has three essential powers: an executive, a legislative, and a judicial power. Who was that? The Baron de Montesquieu. Then we had another guy who said that we have to give up some of our rights for the government to protect those rights. First, what is that theory called? Social contract theory. Who are we attributing that to? Okay, mainly Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You might see it attributed to John Locke as well. Okay, so those are the philosophical theories that we're talking about with our learning target here. If it makes it make a little bit more sense to you, you might want to think about that as being the Enlightenment, okay? And how a nation's political documents. That's what we're spending all this week talking about. The Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution of the United States of America, okay? Also, we'll mention the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers. So there are a lot of founding documents for the United States. We want to make sure that we can pull out that Enlightenment thinking, okay? So today's discussion is going to center around the Declaration of Independence. Hopefully this wouldn't take too long. So we mentioned Thomas Jefferson is the guy who actually wrote the Declaration of Independence, not as our youth said, Martin Luther King Jr. That would be incorrect, okay? Jefferson is a Virginian. He's born in 1743. He's a pretty well-educated man. He attended college at William and Mary. Now, back in the 1700s, very, very few men went to college. Jefferson actually served in the Virginia House of Burgesses. Why was that important? Why do we need to know the Virginia House of Burgesses? Oh, y'all got to wake up on a Monday morning. It's the first form of what kind of democracy? Where they elected people to represent them. What do we call that? Representative democracy. All right? Y'all got to be looking over your notes because that test is coming up on Tuesday. All right? Be ready for that. So, Jefferson is a great writer. Not so good of a public speaker, right? But if Jefferson could go lock himself in a room somewhere, he can pound out the Declaration of Independence and be good. All right? Didn't really talk too much during the Continental Congress, but he was unanimously chosen because people knew how well he could write. Kind of like you guys know, who's a really good writer in your class, right? They all knew that about Jefferson, and when it came time to write it, they said, this guy, right here. He's going to be the one to make this happen. So this Declaration of Independence didn't just come out of the blue, right? We have Common Sense is published, right? Anybody know anything about Common Sense? You should. Fantastic. All right. Common Sense is written by a guy named Thomas Paine. Okay. I like to call him T-Pain, and now you won't forget him. Okay. So Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet. It's about 60 some odd pages if you read it today. It's written with the same vernacular as the Declaration of Independence, so it's a little bit hard to pick up on. But essentially, Thomas Paine is advocating for the colonies to break away from Great Britain. This pamphlet is one of the most influential documents in the colonies because people are reading Common Sense and they're saying, you know what, that makes sense. We do need to break away from Great Britain. We do need to be our own free and independent country. North Carolina is even on the forefront of this. We passed the Halifax Resolves saying that we can vote for independence. We're not declaring independence, but that we can send people to go and vote to declare independence. All right, Virginia, Delaware, they all take the same lead. And they're starting to think, before we declare a Declaration of Independence, that, hey, maybe we need to do something about all of these taxes, the idea of no taxation without representation. And we talked about that story from the French and Indian War leading up to the Declaration of Independence and the American Revolution as well. So this is not a foreign concept to the colonists. Most of them were well educated on this topic. Most of them understood why they wanted to break away and declare independence from Great Britain. So much like the video you saw talked about, I don't know if I would argue that it was meant to be performed per se, but it's definitely written very eloquently. All right? And the intended audience was anybody who wanted to declare independence from England, to talk about why we wanted to do that. And it was also intended for that international audience. We want King George III to read this, and we want it to make him mad. Because every single one of those he has done this, he has done that, is directed at the king. Can you imagine getting a note just from like one of your friends that was that long saying, you did this to me, you did that to me, you did this to me, you did that to me? Right? That's the same thing that King George was reading. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to make it make a little bit more sense. So focus on that second bullet point right here. The fact that Jefferson was a firm believer in the fact that the colonies had a right to overthrow a tyrannical government. You hear that within the Declaration of Independence, that if government oversteps its bounds, if it becomes oppressive of the people, then it is their right to alter, to change, or to abolish, to get rid of it. So if it's tyrannical, what does it mean if somebody is acting like a tyrant?
Like a ball? They're too overpowering.
Okay, they're overpowering. What did you say, Dennis?
Like a boss or something?
Yeah, they're being real bossy, right? They're trying to take complete control and boss everybody around, right? And they're not letting anybody have that free will. I like the way that you put that, okay? So he believed that the colonies had a right to overthrow any sort of tyrannical government. So some of these main points that you guys need to be familiar with, all right? Point number one, all men are created equal. This is what we call the Declaration of Natural Rights within the Declaration of Independence. Now, something interesting, again, here it says that all men, so ladies, sorry, and by men, again, we're not necessarily referring to African American men because, you know, they're property at this point. Jefferson said that men are given certain unalienable rights. What is, we've broken down this word before, but what does that word mean, unalienable? If you are an alien, what does that mean? You ain't from around here, right? That's why we call aliens aliens, because they're not from planet Earth. But also, if somebody's from a different country and they're in the United States, they're an alien, right? Somebody who's foreign. So we have certain rights that cannot be made foreign to us. They're endowed by their Creator. They're endowed by God. I missed that one. They're endowed by God to have these rights. You're born with these. Jefferson said their life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He stole that from what Enlightenment thinker? We just said it.
Wait, life, liberty,
Property, which was whom? John Locke. We might need to have a quiz on our Enlightenment thinkers. Then we might need to get with it. All right? So we have natural rights, and we have the natural right given by God to declare independence from England. All right? Because sometimes it becomes necessary for people to dissolve, to get rid of their political bands, which connect them with one another. AKA, we need to break it off with England, and we need to be able to do our own thing. Government derives their authority from the consent of the government. What does the word consent mean? It's okay, you got permission, you agree to it, right? Government gets its power from the people who agree to be governed. What theory is that? Social contract theory. Which Enlightenment thinker? Okay, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Thank you. All right? We might have to have pronunciation lessons as well. Montesquieu, Rousseau. All right? So when a government abuses its power, the people have the right to get rid of it. And we saw in the Declaration of Independence that the colonies said that, hey, we tried to work it out. You know, and they said, you know what, listen, it's not me this time, it's you. We got to go and we got to do our own thing, okay? It's necessary for us to form our own type of government. I'm going to go over here and listen, you just need to figure out who you want to be. You need to figure out who you are, how you're going to act. And then maybe we can work it out, but probably not. Y'all with me on that? Okay? That's essentially what the colonies are saying. So, the historical significance, and this, if you see the Declaration of Independence on your test, this is one thing that you want to include. All right? First and foremost, we finally declare our independence from England. After hanging out through the Stamp Act and the Tea Act and the Coercive Act and the Townshend Act and the Intolerable Act and the Proclamation of 1763, all of these different things, Boston Massacre, Boston Tea Party, Sons of Liberty are hanging out. We finally declare our independence from England, and we have to work it out and create a new nation. And we're going to talk about that we have a little bit of growing pains, if you will, as we create that new nation. So again, just bringing it back to that learning target, you need to be able to look at these founding documents and pull out Enlightenment thinking, okay? And we're going to talk about, I'll show you guys some examples off of a released form of your MSL of what that might look like, because they're going to give you a document, and on the released version, it's the Iroquois Constitution, which we're not going to talk about in here. But it asks you to read it and then say, which concept is it talking about here? That's the way that you're going to be assessed on your test, okay? Can you read this document and interpret this document? And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail. All right, any questions on that? Very cool.